There is a number that defines a life, a social security number, a phone number, a bank account number. For Navinder Singh Sarao, that number was 214. It was a simple three-digit code, the identifier for the E-mini S&P 500 futures contract on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And on May 6, 2010, from a modest house in a London suburb, Navinder would type that number into his trading terminal and play a game. He didn't know it, but the stakes of his game were the entire global economy. This is a story of how one man, working from his bedroom, accidentally broke the American stock market. It's a story about a flaw in a hard machine and the unlikely player who found it. To understand what happened, you have to understand the world Navinder operated in. By 2010, Wall Street was no longer a physical place. It was a digital battlefield, a realm of light-speed fiber optics and algorithms so fast they could execute trades in microseconds. It was a war of bits and bytes, fought between billion-dollar investment firms in steel skyscrapers. And then there was Nav, a lone wolf, a hyper-focused day trader who preferred a tracksuit to a suit. He wasn't a banker. He was a gamer. And the market was his ultimate video game. His advantage wasn't wealth or a PhD. It was an almost supernatural intuition for patterns. He could stare at the chaotic dance of numbers on his screen, the tape, and see a rhythm nobody else could. He noticed something strange. The big, powerful algorithms. They were predictable. They were bullies. They would post enormous buy orders to push the market up and then quickly cancel them. A bluff, a digital game of chicken. And Navinder decided to call their bluff. His tool was simple and legal at the time. A technique called spoofing. He would place a massive sell order, a bet that the market would fall, an order for millions of dollars, far larger than he could ever actually fulfill. To the algorithms watching the tape, it looked like a tsunami of selling was about to hit. It was a signal of fear, a signal to run. The algorithms, programmed to react in milliseconds, would panic. They'd see Nav giant order and start selling themselves, rushing to get out first. And as the market ticked down, driven by this synthetic fear, Nav would cancel his giant fake order, and then with a few keystrokes, he'd swoop in and buy the now cheaper contract for real. He was a ghost in the machine, flickering in and out of existence, tricking the titans of finance into running from their own shadow. For years, he did this. It was his game, and he was winning. But on May 6, 2010, something was different. The market was already on edge, anxious over the European debt crisis. The air was electric with instability. And that afternoon, Navinder began to play his game. He started spoofing, a flood of fake sell orders, a signal of fear. The algorithms saw it, and this time they didn't just sell, they went haywire. Their panic became a feedback loop. Their selling triggered more selling, which triggered even more. It was a digital stampede. And in the span of 36 minutes, the unthinkable happened. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, the very heartbeat of American capitalism, began to implode. It fell 600 points, then 800, then 1,000 points. At the nadir of the crash, $1 trillion in market valuation had simply vanished. Procter & Gamble, a bedrock blue-chip stock, lost nearly 40% of its value in seconds. Accenture stock plummeted from $40 to a single penny. The market wasn't just falling, it was shattering. 8:45 to 1300 hours. The aftermath and the twist. In skyscrapers in New York and Chicago, men in $1,000 suits stared at their screens, utterly helpless. The machine they had built had taken over. They had no idea why. The hunt for the cause began immediately. Was it a terrorist? A foreign cyber attack? They sifted through millions of lines of data, looking for a villain. They didn't find a Bond-esque mastermind in a secret lair. They found a record of trade originating from a simple IP address. They followed the digital trail across the Atlantic, to a house in Hounslow, West London, to a man in his 30s, living with his parents. When the authorities finally knocked on his door, Navinder Sarao was utterly bewildered. He was just a trader. He was just playing the game. The idea that he had broken the entire market was, to him, absurd. He hadn't created the flawed system. He had just found its weakest point. The U.S. Department of Justice saw it differently. They charged him with multiple counts of market manipulation and wire fraud. They alleged he made over $40 million from a scheme. They wanted to extradite him and put him in prison for the rest of his life. The kid from London who beat the giants at their own game was now facing down the most powerful government on earth. The story of the flash crash is more than a tale of one man's audacity. It's a cautionary fable for our digital age. It's a story about a system so complex and so fragile that a single person, armed with nothing but a desktop computer and a clever idea, could send it spiraling into chaos. Navinder Sarao wasn't a monster. He was a symptom, a reflection of a market that had become untethered from reality, a realm where perception is engineered, and fear is just another algorithm to be exploited. He eventually pleaded guilty and, after cooperating with authorities, was sentenced to time served, avoiding U.S. prison. He returned to a life of obscurity. The system, meanwhile, installed a series of circuit breakers, digital band-aids meant to prevent it from happening again. But the fundamental question remains, lingering in the silent, lightning-fast exchanges between servers. Is the market a real thing, or is it just a game? And if it's just a game, what happens when someone else decides to play?